All right, let's do some hydraulic repair, shall we? I thought I would make a video on this. Let's talk about what's going on with this machine, and then I'll talk to you about what I'm going to do to repair it. I'm not an expert at hydraulics, but it's pretty simple stuff. The thing to make sure is, if you ever do any hydraulic repair, make sure that whatever you're working on is in a neutral position, and if you disconnect hydraulic lines, something's not going to fall on you. That's number one. And also, there's no pressure in those systems. So what I've done is I've let these legs down, and I've got them in a neutral position where they're not pushing down on the ground and they're not hanging from the ground. They're just kind of sitting there. So what I've checked is on this system, on this, is I've got, when I'm up on it, and I have weight over this outrigger here on the left, it starts to creep down slowly, very slowly, and it's been getting a little bit worse. So I'm thinking what it is, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert at this, is you have a piston inside of here, and I've worked on these before, but not this particular one. There's a piston inside here, and what it does is it puts pressure on this side of the piston to push down on the hydraulics to make it go off the ground. So if it was having a leak, it could have a leak at that piston and leak from this side of the piston over to this side, and actually just start to creep down. So I think that might be what's happening. There's another thing that's involved. How this whole outrigger system works is there's one solenoid on here. I don't know which one. There's one solenoid on here that actually pressurizes all four legs. Okay, it pressurizes all four legs, and then there's a sensor on the feet that, I don't know, it's spring action. If you pull up on here, you can't do it right now because it's in neutral. But if you pull up on here, there's like a little spring and a sensor on there that senses when these are actually touching the ground. And when it does that, then the auto level system, the computer kind of takes over and then starts actuating these solenoids here. If you can see, there's a little solenoid right there, and starts to do the auto level thing. So it'll start letting pressure off or putting pressure on, and until all four level the whole machine out by turning on and off these solenoids and charging this fluid inside there. So that's how it works. Okay, so there's only one hydraulic pressurization for all four of them, and then it uses those solenoids to level it out. So there's two things that it could be. One is it could be, well, three actually. It could be that this is leaking off, this is the wear part. So I'm thinking that it's probably this. Or it could be that the solenoid itself is not working. Okay. And I just looked at it just now, and I noticed that one of them is upside down. So if you look here, this one's on this way. And then if you look here, this one's on that way. So it's kind of odd. I think it was like that when I got it. So maybe somebody's done something here. Let's look at the other ones. They're on with these on the bottom, and that one's on the top. So I may flip this one over too. I may have done that actually. I don't think so, but I may have. So I'll flip that one over to make sure that it's in the same position as the front ones. I don't think they've been messed with. And then I'll do this one here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take apart these cylinders. I'm going to go ahead and rebuild those. They're not hard to rebuild. They're actually pretty easy. So I'll have that in this video, and hopefully that'll help you if you're needing to rebuild your hydraulics. It's really not, it's expensive to have it done. You know, it costs like $250 to $300 to have somebody rebuild this cylinder. and the parts I believe are around 50 or 60. I'll show you that later in the video. The place to get the parts is called Burnell Hydraulics. They have it all usually in stock. We'll go over there and get some pieces, get this apart, and get them matched up, and we'll put it back together and see if it works. Yes, I don't care how careful you are, you're still going to get hydraulic fluid everywhere, so just plan on it. Have your kitty litter ready. It seems to come out from wherever you don't want it to come out of. When I put it, I was expecting it to come out of the hole there, and then it came out the other end. It never goes where I want it to go whenever I've done this, so I just don't even bother. I just get the kitty litter out, clean it up. It's much easier. And then trying to put this heavy thing in a bucket inside a drain pan or something like that, unless you got a really big one, or maybe a kitchen tray or something like that. You can try that, whatever. I just use the kitty litter. So some guys aren't gonna like that, but oh well, that's how I do it. So what I've got to do now is I've got to take this. If you notice, I had to take off the solenoid. In order to get this off, I had to take this little cap off, because it threads back into this. So this had to come off. The little cap comes off, then the solenoid comes off. And there's a little valve here. You can see a little valve, and everything needs to be very clean when you put it back together. If you get contaminants in your system and it gets through that filter, there's very small orifices in there, and you will have problems with your hydraulics after that. So just keep that in mind. Make sure I get a couple cans of brake spray, clean everything up really clean, and I'll put it back together. But right now, what I need to do is I don't know if I need to take that off right now. Maybe I should. This piston has to come off. Okay, that big nut. You need an impact wrench of some kind, air or whatever. And you need to take this end off. Got to take that off. Got to slide this off. This has to come off. Okay. Then I'm gonna take this down to Burnell, and then have everything matched up. They'll get the same pistons, the sliders, whatever, and the piston will be. I'll keep the original one, but I'll replace all the stuff that's on it. If you see, these things actually come off. Here's a little separation ring there. It's like I don't know what this is. I think these actually. You have to take this nut off to get these apart. I think it's like these are stacked in there, so they got to get replaced. This little slider's got to get replaced. This O-ring here, and then there's a seal on the end, so you have to take that nut off. Let's get that off there. All right, so if you see here, these have to go in the proper direction. So if you see the seal here, the edge is on the pressure side of the hydraulics. So if you put it in upside down, it's not going to work. You have to know a little bit about seals and the O-rings. If you notice here, this has got an O-ring here, and it has a square O-ring here. That all has to go in exactly the same way you took it apart. It all has a reason. The reason that this is square is that it's actually the seal or something like that, or it's a spacer. I don't know exactly what it does, but it has to be in exactly the way it was taken out. What these are, you'll notice this one here had two of these little, they're like, I don't know what they're made out of, like a kind of a plastic, weird plastic. And what they do is they help keep the thing centered, okay, so that it doesn't wear, you know, so that the bar, this part over here doesn't wear against the piston. So that's what these are. They're centering rings. So there's these. You run into a lot of stuff. So it all has to be put back together exactly as it was taken apart. And then in the very end of this, there's a dust seal. If you see here, that's the one that you see on the outside. There's one that's this, the actual seal itself is this one right here. And if you can see, it isn't very easy to put in. You have to kind of not damage it, get it in that groove. So this is where the rubber meets the road, guys. I mean, this is not, it's not that easy to do this part. It's easy, but it's not, you know, you can screw up. So this has got to go in that groove, and then everything needs to be lubricated before you put it together. One of the things you need to know is when you do your piston here, when you put this in the cylinder, you make sure, if you notice there's a little bit of a taper on this one. There's a little bit of a taper right here. So it helps it go in, but do not damage it. It's very easy to damage it. Let it rub against these threads. If you damage it, then you just wasted your time. You have to do it again. Another $50 to $75 in seals. So anyway, and like I said, lubricate everything really good. So I'll get this together. I don't know if we'll get it all on camera, but we'll get it all together, and then you gotta figure this part out a little bit on your own. But if you've done any kind of mechanical repair, you'll figure this out pretty easily. I think these are really not that hard to do. It's just intimidating because you've never done it before. But more than likely, if you've done any mechanical stuff, if you're totally new to mechanical stuff, you know, take it apart and put it together exactly how it was taken apart. You can go, when you go over to the place to get the parts, you might want to take some of them off before you take them there, because like he took this one apart before I got to it. You know, I didn't get to take it apart, but I kind of know how it goes back together. So anyway, I'll move on and get some more done. All right, so I've got this on, and then that needs to be on there, that little O-ring. So you got to really look for little O-rings other places that you might not think there will be one. Then of course this piston goes on. I'm going to do a little bit of work to it because I did drop this. Shouldn't drop it, but anyway, it fell out of the vise. So I'm just going to clean that up, make sure it's right and there's no burrs on that, because you don't want that to rub against the bore. And if it rubs against the bore and ruins the cylinder, the inside of the cylinder, that would be a real expensive problem. So let's move forward. Alright, so it does have little bleeders on the bottom. Can't really reach them while it's on there, so that you could try and get the air out that way. Typically, when I've done hydraulics before, I don't know if this is right or wrong or indifferent. I have no idea, but usually when I just work them back and forth, the air just kind of works its way out, and then you have just hydraulic fluid. But I always work them like 2, 3, 4 times. That's kind of what I was doing in there. And then what I'll do is I'll retract them all and check the fluid, of course. Don't forget to do that. So I just push on this one. I just go auto level. It's going to jump a little. And it's up that high at the ground. Press auto level and retract them all. Bring them all up. Because that one sure is moving a lot faster than the rest of them, that's for sure. Maybe these are all needing to be rebuilt. So I'll do that. Take over the fluid. Here it's quite a bit low, so I got to take this thing out here, get that big Allen wrench, and then take that out and fill it up to where it's just barely in the sight glass right now. Probably be okay, but I'm going to fill it up to make sure it's got plenty in it. Probably about a gallon low or so, half a gallon. Probably what will leak about, a couple quarts leaked out for sure. Out of there. That's why I always know I'm just going to get a mess. It's just, that's part of hydraulics, I think. If you ever look at a forklift guy, he's always got a bag of kitty litter, bag of kitty litter with him every time they're working, because they always have. There's always going to be a leak or a puddle, or somehow you always hit it on the ground. So if you're going to do it, last time I did it on the rocks, but it was a little harder and do this time, so I just did it right here. And like I said, my concrete, I'm not really worried about it. Some people are, so you better make sure you are ready for that. I'll talk to you in the next one. So anyway, that's it for this. I'll talk to you in the next video, and please like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully this helped you by just watching me. Look, if you're doing this yourself, take the risk yourself. Just watch me as if this is how I do it, not how it is supposed to be done. Because again, I don't know. I just do it, and it works. So anyway, if it helps you, maybe you can muster your way to something. Maybe you're in an emergency situation. Maybe it'll help you out of that. So that's what I made this for. I'll talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.